Set for release June 12, 2023 on the Quest 2 by Canadian developer and publisher Games by Stitch. Broken Spectre, which by the way I thought was pronounced Broken Spectre, until I heard the protagonist say it in-game, is one incredibly interesting and a unique VR game to say the least.
Legend of Broken Spectre.
Broken Spectre feels like an H.P. Lovecraft, a Blair Witch Project marriage made in the bowels of Hades. But that's not all that makes this point-and-click styled VR horror game unique. It gives players the option to play the entire game using hand tracking only. I may have only experimented with full hand tracking in Forever Darts by Forever Games, and that was just a sports game, masterfully executed by the way. However, here in Broken Spectre, this is an actual adventure game, and I must say, although sometimes things got wonky, job well done, Games by Stitch. Also, big thanks to you guys for the review key. I may also be streaming this one as well, it's just that good.
Feels like shards of ice in my veins.
The story of Broken Spectre comes as no shock to me. I did say it feels like a Blair Witch Project Lovecraftian hybrid, and with such a mashup, a bizarre, twisted, and vague story was expected, and Broken Spectre certainly lived up to those expectations.
This statue is Christoph. I know him.
Although I didn't figure out the entire story, I got a pretty decent idea of what's going on here. But still, I won't spoil too much.
Casey? I'm here, Grandma. I think I'm really close.
You're Casey, and 25 years ago, you went up into Cold Blood Mountains with your father to explore and investigate some odd plants. Yeah, some of these plants, which your dad referred to as chimera, reminds me of the Little Shop of Horrors.
Chimera?
Yep. A chimera is an organism made of genetically different tissue, fused together, or mutated.
Your father left you at the trailer to go exploring on his own and never returned. Now, 25 years later, you received a phone call from your dad, and, against your grandmother's advice and perhaps your better judgment, you went back to Cold Blood Mountains to find him.
Sorry, Grandma, but if Dad's here, I won't leave without him.
What takes place shortly after arriving back at these cursed mountains goes from a nostalgia-filled hike down memory lane to hell and damnation in 60 seconds. I'll save the rest for those of you brave enough to take on this terror-filled adventure yourselves.
Not all who seek answers are worthy.
I'll tell you this much though. Something unexpected happened the first time I played through this. Something which led me to believe this game was a joke. I thought for a second this game was over in 30 minutes. There seemed to be multiple ways to get the ending, depending on the choices you make or don't make. The first time I played, I reached the ending in less than an hour and felt so disappointed, saying to myself, this game was just getting good, brimming with potential, with the whole full hand tracking experience and all, and its interesting take on a point-and-click walking sim. I was distraught to the point that I had to play it again to see if there was something I missed, as the experience I had initially was shorter than most demos I've ever played. Glad to report, however, on my second playthrough, there was a whole lot more to be done. To this point, I'm not entirely sure what I did or did not do. I mean, I have an idea. I solved the first puzzle, but it seems like an odd design choice to make the puzzle optional without letting the player know. It felt like just something I stumbled on.
I'm trying to get you. I don't know where you are.
I have seen things like this in Far Cry games, but to end the game early wasn't easily achieved by accident. Here, I almost gave this game a shitty review. One of those "it had so much potential but fell flat" reviews. I only returned to it because of how captivating its initial presentation was. Simply by chance, I took the time to tell you guys this little story simply to bring further to the forefront how captivated I was by this game early in.
scared.
Follow me.
Where are we going?
Dad!
Me playing a game twice, just to see if I missed something, just because I was left yearning for more, speaks volumes of its quality.
Look, I don't know if this will reach you, but I had to try. There's something up here with me. I'm scared.
Over in the sound department, Broken Spectre has a pretty good score, perfectly complements the overall atmosphere. All sounds, atmospheric and otherwise, are subtle and fitting. The voice acting is also well done.
I've got the wire cutters, but do I have the nerve to break into a national park? I doubt anyone comes up here anymore anyways.
Only peeve I have with Casey, our protagonist's performance, is based on what she's experiencing, based on her reasons for going up into these mountains, based on the horrific things she has seen. Sometimes her responses are unbelievably calm. Sometimes she acts believably shocked, but then seconds later, she's bizarrely calm and collected, as if nothing happened. As if we're back to the beginning of the game, where she's just excited to find her father, and didn't just rip a stuck mountain goat's head in half, didn't just teleport to another dimension, didn't just see a creature looking like something out of the John Carpenter's Most Bizarre Creations Museum. Yeah, her reactions were inconsistent, to put it mildly.
Dad will want to see this. Maybe he can explain what's happened.
I'm always giving Quest 2 visuals a hard time, and rightfully so. I often compare the Quest 2 to the Switch, but with a bit more thought. I think even the Switch, relatively speaking, looks better. But here in Broken Spectre, well, this ain't one of those games where the devs attempted to hang their hats out of their own reach. It's not like Saints and Sinners, or games reaching for more photorealism. Broken Spectre has this hand-drawn, cel-shaded look. These visuals, which lean more on the cartoon side of the spectrum. So, to worry myself with low-detailed characters and environments would be out of place. I quite like these visuals here. I'm certain, should there be a PC port, a PSVR 2 port, the visuals will look significantly better. But still, with the visuals like these, I do not expect much. The chosen art style was a wise choice, as it doesn't require much from the hardware. Still looks good enough, and although lacking in certain details, still keeps the scare factor and overall desired atmosphere where they need to be.
The passenger cannot perceive the tracks from within the train. I peer out my window and marvel at these miracles.
Gameplay here is nothing complicated. Easy to learn, easy to master, with a few hiccups based on the current limitations of the Quest 2's hand tracking capabilities and locomotion style. On startup, we have a few options: calibration, audio, and gameplay. I did find it odd that there were really no options in gameplay though, but Broken Spectre has a couple months to go before its actual release, so there may be more to come. You also have the option to play with only your hands, like I mentioned earlier, no controllers, or with the controllers. And although one of the main draws of Broken Spectre was the full hand tracking experience, as a reviewer, I wanted to see the difference in experiences. Let's say maybe when using controllers you had smooth turning and free locomotion, as opposed to the unique approach to movement here, by turning with the flick of your wrist or closing your palm to move forward. But when I tried to select controllers, it just wouldn't happen. Again, I believe this is a part of the early access build I played and may be sorted by release in June. I just don't see why there would be an option for using either, if only one is supported. The full hand tracking experience was a really gutsy and ambitious move on the devs' part though. Once I saw that in the trailer, I knew this was a game I had to check out. Great trailer by the way, guys. As I alluded to earlier, the use of hand tracking is not perfect, far from ideal, but still offers a sense of immersion not found in conventional VR games. VR on its own is without a doubt the most immersive way to play a video game with standard VR controllers. Even the PSVR 1's Move controllers. But hand tracking takes it to another level. And this isn't like Forever Darts, which was my first foray into the world of hand tracking. This is a full adventure game. Now, I am aware that this technology and the use of it has a far way to go. And years from now, I'll be looking back at Broken Spectre as humble beginnings. But the ambition here the devs displayed is admirable and certainly worthy of commendation. There were many times when simple things like choosing an item to pick up got really janky. Times when performing a simple action like cutting down some bushes looked less than stellar. But none of this really took away from what the developers achieved here. You see, the thing is, I entered this engagement with realistic expectations, and even these tethered expectations were far surpassed. This is the reason I was so disappointed when my first playthrough ended prematurely. This was a gameplay experience I really wanted to explore further. My second playthrough was still relatively short but satisfying, and for the kind of game this is, I needed no more. Based on these playthroughs, I'm not certain if there's more I could have done to extend the playtime. But it matters not. I'm good now. And another thing, both playthroughs, I got the same ending, so there may not even be multiple endings, which seems kinda odd. But who knows? Multiple endings aren't impossible either. I'm simply not that guy who will be playing the same game 3 times. 2 playthroughs is quite the feat for me as is. Other than the hand tracking issues and the short freezes when cutting the bushes, there were moments when prompts would not show up when they were supposed to. Things wouldn't happen as they should. This particular puzzle was one of those moments. I did have a good time with the puzzles here though. They were all logic based and real easy. There was even one where you had to work in a makeshift darkroom. No, this took me back to my earlier days when I was a photographer and darkroom technician for 13 years. And while I noticed some inaccuracies in the processing of these pictures, it was fun doing my old job in VR. And for most part, it was an accurate simulation of processing black and white pictures using the various chemicals. I also loved some of the dark touches to puzzle solving. In the darkroom, you had to shed your own blood to create a safe light.
Now it's safe to develop his photos.
And this one other puzzle required you to sever your own 2 fingers. Yeah, this game is not for the faint of heart. So all in all, Broken Spectre was one of those games I didn't know I needed, didn't expect to fall in love with. Flaws and all, this is a great game and I fully recommend it to fans of Blair Witch styled horror, Lovecraftian horror, players who love creepy, unconventional approaches to VR horror, persons like myself who love to take a break from the done-to-death video game tropes, players looking for a slower, unpredictable pace. Broken Spectre will serve you well.
What was that thing? It looks like the monster I drew as a kid.
Thank you for watching. If you like my content, feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Let's say on the other hand, something in this review pissed you off, then feel free to dislike, unsub, leave a feisty comment, whatever it takes to float your boat, partner. Either way, I won't hold it against you. Our game is never over.
The mountain promises answers. I climb because I seek to know.